The early morning of Friday the 21st of October, 1966, a heavy mist hung over the small mining village of Aberfan in South Wales. It had been raining for 4 days. The 7 tips of coal waste from the colliery rose high above the village. For years they'd cast their shadow over Aberfan, threatening disaster. Now, on the last day before half-term, as the children from the village settled into their classrooms, disaster struck.
There aren't many days in your life when you look back, when you can remember the exact second of an event. The 21st of October 1966 was just one of those days. I left in the morning in my little A30, arrived at school 5 to 9, and then the most unbelievable thing happened, which is just indescribable.
I remember I got ready for school across the road from my friend Jacqueline. We walked down through Aberfan and we called into the sweet shop. We bought sweets and then we crossed the road to go through the gates of the school.
We'd had assembly in the hall and we'd sung All Things Bright and Beautiful. After the assembly we went back into the classroom, and it being a Friday we were changing our library books. I'd just gone off from the Janet and John series and I went and changed my library book, Hergé's Adventures of Tintin. And then next thing there was an almighty crash.
It was about 9:15. I was standing by my desk. I looked up to it was a foggy day, and something attracted my attention to the window, and I looked at the window. And I could see this black line travelling at 70, 80 mile an hour, who knows, but extremely fast. And a spinning boulder, which I can remember, which is firmly fixed in my mind, spinning on the left of it. And in no time at all, this had smashed into the classroom and I was hurled to the side of the classroom, along with most of the children. And in about 2 seconds, the whole room had filled up.
A woman coming running down from the direction of the school, and she says to me, Mrs. Jones her name was, "Quick, Cliff," she said, "the wall had fallen down on the school." So me and my mate runs up on the wall of the school. Well, it was more than that because I'd had underground experience. And this stuff, which I knew to be tip stuff at that time, was over the top of the school, and the stuff was moving. And it would fill anything. You know, it was going in house after house, and soon as the house was filling with the slurry, over the house would go. And these people was in their houses. But I could see the farm now. I could see the chickens coming through the roof. That was in the yard of the school. The farm was carried down the mountain. And it was in the schoolyard, and the slurry was all around it. And the chickens was coming out through the roof, flying, and the stuff was still moving. I was breaking the window to get into the hall, the big hall, and what struck me was there was nothing in the big hall at all. It was clean, and there was glass cabinets standing, and there wasn't a broken pane of glass. And I could hear a scream, only one scream I could hear. And I looked through, and the timbers was cracking, and I looked through to my left, and there was a woman screaming on her knees. And she said, that's all I could get out of her was, "They're all in there."
So there were only a few people there, and I spoke to the policeman there. As I'm going down the pit, I said to him, "Foreman, what's happening down there?" Well, when I got down the pit, it was only 10 minutes walk carrying and trotting. I went in straight in the manager, and I said, "There's something serious up here. We've had the message, Billy said." Well, I said, "We better get every man up to the bloody pit," I said, "and get up there." I said, "They want every man up there a bit quick." So there's no argument there. They stopped all the pits in the locality. And they were quickly up there with the tools, the boys. And I went up there with them then. And the boys were wonderful. They were, you know, miners from every pit in the area went up there. And they could do it methodically, see. They wouldn't they would systematically get in there, see.
So, carried on shoveling and shoveling and shoveling. Well, we did have some out at that time, and I'm talking about 10:15 in the morning. Well, I seen some terrible, shocking streets, people collapsing, and they didn't know, and not knowing was making it worse for a lot of people. Not knowing, we've seen so and so, and we've seen so and so. Well, we couldn't say. I hadn't seen my own.
I remember waking up covered with all this material. There was only one little opening, and because my hair was very white or blonde, they were able to see that someone was actually there. And it was purely because of that I was rescued. At that time, I'd bought felt pens, and they were a rather new thing. They cost 2 and 6 at the time. And I had these 3 felt pens, a red one, a blue one, and a mauve one. And I was more interested in getting these felt pens out. And the fire officer said to me, forget those bloody felt pens and let's get you out.
Everywhere was black, you couldn't see nothing. And I heard men above me. They were standing up on a windowsill, asking is there anybody there. And I said yes. Couldn't ask me if I could see daylight, which I could through the inkwell of the desk. So I put my finger through the inkwell and they dug me out. And they passed me then from one man to another, right through the hall. And I remember coming through the big window, and that's when the policeman came and carried me to the yard, to the doctor. So all you could see was slurry on top of the school, and the roof was down flat to the floor. I remember seeing my auntie. I remember seeing my mother. I was crying because I'd lost my show. There were many ones. I didn't know where it was.
As the waiting, it was terrible. You was on edge all the time, and you was hearing of different children then had died, and it was very, very upsetting. And the only consolation you had out of it all, you weren't on your own, and there was many more in the same situation as you, some worse than others. Then we had news that there was a young lad down in the hospital down the valley. They didn't know who he was at the moment. That built our hopes up a little bit. But then inquiries were made, and it was another lad.
The boys were scratching away and scraping away and shouting quiet. They could hear voices, buried. And some corpses were being recovered as well, That's terrible. Oh, it's terrible, terrible. Well, I just tried not to think about it now.
As the day wore on, the likelihood of finding anyone alive became less and less.
I tried to rescue people, but I realised it could be dangerous, just again not knowing what you were doing, and I was getting in the way of people. So I immediately switched over to pastoral work and tried to ascertain the casualties. And one of the strange things, that the number of casualties was exaggerated. The press continually reported figures of up to 200, but on the scene we were convinced that we had 150, and we were 7 out. And knowing the size of the classes and which classes had been overcome, it was a case of rough and ready arithmetic. There was no way in which the numbers would add up to 200, that was the point. Yeah.
And you yourself lost a child?
Yes. Yep. Yes, he was here in that class I spoke about. Yeah. Yeah.
The dead children were taken to Bethania Chapel, and they were all laid out on the pews. It was very sad because it was difficult for parents to identify their children. I saw parents going round and round, not being able to recognize their children. I particularly remember that one of twins was killed, and the only way that the parents were able to recognize that child was because they recalled that she was wearing identical clothes with the clothes that the surviving twin wore.
The doctor came up to the house and he said they'd like you down the chapel, which was used as a mortuary. I couldn't go down. Is my brother and my wife went down and to identify my son.
I didn't know at that time that we'd lost a son and daughter. That's all I knew. We had a gainer out, and we didn't know which class the other two were in, because one was age 7, the other one was age 10. So they was in different parts of school, but they were the classes that gone. So we didn't know. So we was only too glad, really. What we had gainer out. I know she broke her leg, but it was something. But looking back now, if we hadn't had the other family, I think we would have just give up hope. But well, as I say, it was a lot of people, nerves went to pieces, and needed treatment straight away. You know?
Well, I went round then, as I said, the families, breaking the news to some, trying to find out what had happened, just helping. It was obvious that a certain amount of relief work had to be done, so we organised that. And actually, I couldn't put together for the first 3 or 4 days exactly what I did do. There was very, very little sleep. I think I was out of bed for something like 42 hours. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how to begin. Never in my life have I ever seen anything like this. I hope that I shall never, ever see anything like it again. For years, of course, the miners have been used to having roll calls whenever there's been a pit disaster. Today, for the first time in history, the roll call was called in the street. It was the miners' children. And even now, at this time of night, more than 12 hours after disaster first struck, little glimmers of hope still run down through the main street. Only minutes ago, someone came down with a faint hope. They said that they'd found a child, and the child was underneath a blackboard, and they thought that the child was alive. 10 minutes before, they brought out a whole pile of bodies of 20 children, where the whole of this muck had run straight through the whole of the classroom and literally buried them.
Every street in Aberfan was affected. Everybody were hit. Everybody there. We lost 5 children in our street and 5 girls. They were all girls. And I mean, we're not a big street at all. I used to take the children, a lot of them, from the street to the baths on a Sunday morning. And they were all learning to swim. Not that I wanted to go on a Sunday morning at 7 o'clock. I didn't feel like it half the time. But we did. There was, I tell you how many used to come with me then. There's one little boy there. 2, 3, 4, 5. And they all went. If that kind of thing makes you, at the time, I mean, difficult to look back. No, well, not difficult. I don't want to really. See, for a long time, for a long time, I was afraid to think. I feared thinking for a long time. Because it would keep coming back all the time.
The day before, we played, which was always a local derby against Troyderoo, and we expected to win, but we were given a very tough fight by Troyderoo, as always happens in derbies at whatever level. And after being down, I think it was 2-1, on a big pitch, little boys, Robert and the rest of the team managed to win the game 3-2. Well, Robert was a wonderful, strong personality, definitely a leader type, captain of the football team. Oh, he was just a wonderful boy. And one thing as a teacher, you realise that you were dealing with talented children who will go on to become life's doctors, dentists, leaders, prime ministers, whatever. And Robert was one of those, and he kept me on my toes. They were all very happy at winning, and the following day, every member of that football team died, and I survived. Doesn't seem fair, does it? Just doesn't seem fair. You're talking to Robert one day, and everything is normal, and he's arranging the next match along with me, and then the following day, we're just gone. What am I supposed to do? It's just unbelievable.
The photograph you see there of my son, Mr. Richardson, gentleman, he done a photograph for every bereaved parent, whether they lost 1 or 2, and he took it off a school photograph, and his lifelike. And Desmond was a jolly kid, full of life, full of fun, and he could have been a footballer, he could have been a cricketer, he could have been anything, and you're wondering, what would he have been? The day of the funerals, the streets were black, going up the cemeteries, and see the hearses, one after another, taking the coffins up into the cemetery, and he was numbed.
116 children and 28 adults had died in the disaster. Every family in Aberfan was touched by death. Mixed with the terrible grief came bitterness at the colliery management and the National Coal Board.
The people were angry, yeah. It was our pit, our pit's waste that come down on the kids. People were saying nasty things. The board officials, they were very, very worried. And the manager, Tom Wynn, poor fellow's dead now. Him and Lewis, they did ask me, would the miners now gather at the Welfare Hall to march up to the cemetery, and would we all gather around the colliery officials, the colliery management? Oh, I said, no trouble with that. I could sense then, I wouldn't say they were frightened, they were men as good as I was in that regard, but they were ill at ease then.
An option was given to the parents either for a communal funeral or individual. 72 opted for the communal burial, but we had 72 individual funerals to organise. Well, I'm thinking of one funeral where I buried 5 in one service. Yes, the end of chapter 8 of Romans is a great summary of faith. What can separate us from the love of God? It's a passage I always use when there's a personal tragedy or disaster, and that's the message we always try to emphasize. I am certain that nothing can separate us from his love, neither death nor life, neither angels nor other heavenly rulers or powers, neither the present nor the future, neither the world above nor the world below. There is nothing in all creation that will ever be able to separate us from the love of God, which is ours through Christ Jesus our Lord.
The morning after the funeral, life continued. But Aberfan had changed forever. Now the whole world knew about Aberfan. Money poured into the disaster fund. Toys for the surviving children filled the local cinema to the roof. Helpers came from all over the country. For such a small community, it was overwhelming.
We weren't prepared for it. We weren't geared up for what was happening. Like the people from the press, they came in. We hadn't seen any of this, ever. We didn't know anything. It's a different world to us. And they are all over the place. And when I say that they are from all over the world, literally true. They were round with their notebooks and their pads and asking all these questions. How are you getting over it? And this kind of thing. Well, I mean, you cannot. I mean, you cannot ask me that question now. Never mind 30 years ago. I mean, that question you couldn't ask me, or rather, let me put it this way then, that I wouldn't ask any of the bereaved that I know now that question today.
The press were also after Lord Robens, chairman of the National Coal Board. Who was to blame, they wanted to know. Not the Coal Board, said Lord Robens. The people of Aberfan vehemently disagreed. They decided to get organised and fight.
Someone, I don't know who, but a couple got together and they thought, we've got to do something about this. We have to form some kind of association. So that was formed, and they called it then the Bereaved Parents Association.
There was a great deal of anger because people felt that authority had let them down so badly. It was like one of these revolutionary meetings, you know, that was thrown up in the days after during the French Revolution, you know, and the citizens wanted to take over the reins.
The main battle was to get representation at the public inquiry. They turned for advice to a local solicitor, Cyril Mosley.
The most important thing was to get information about the tips, how they'd been set up, where the material had come from, what kind of material it was, and what had happened to cause this tip to slide down the mountainside. I had an office in Kenneth Hayes' house, the Baptist Manse in Moy Road in Aberfan. I had a constant stream of people then coming in, and I was just taking statements from them. We wanted the best silk that we could find, the best silk in the country, and the name Desmond Ackner cropped up every time.
The clans were assembled in the Aberfan chapel, and it was my function to walk up the steps into the pulpit and address them. I think that's one of the few courageous things I've ever done, because the atmosphere was glacial. Their attitude was, who is this stranger from London who's been brought down to take part in this whitewash in relation to the cobboard? And they understandably took that view, because Robens had made a thoroughly foolish and inaccurate statement 2 days after the disaster, that nobody knew that in the heart of this tip there was a stream that was turning the tip into sludge. And they knew this was quite untrue. They reckoned this was what was going to be put forward. And I've been brought down in order to make sure the cobboard got this established.
They was running a bus down from Aberfan that time. Anybody wanted to go to the tribunal. And to sit there and listen to them talking, oh, it was making my blood boil. To listen to the things he was saying, and he was straightforward. The water was still running the natural course it have run since I was a young boy, where I used to swim in it. We would dike it up and spend the day there in the summer swimming. And quite a lot of my friends would go swimming there. So when they said in the tribunal that the water, where did it come from? It was natural, it's a spring. It had been there all this time. And I mean, for them to try and deny the water being there, absolutely ridiculous. When I attended the tribunal in Cardiff, I was flabbergasted to hear a man saying that.
Knowing that there would be large numbers of people from Aberfan attending, it was important that everyone should feel that all that they wanted to say was said, so that everybody had the opportunity of sending a message up to Mr. Ackner.
If Mr. Mosley or Mr. Desmond Ackner wanted any information about the village, they turned to us, and it's a marvellous experience, man. And this Desmond Ackner and Mr. Mosley, they were brilliant they were, because when Mr. Desmond Ackner would have his car keys behind his back, he'd start shaking them in his hand, he was ready to drive the knife in.
They said that the tip seemed to heave upwards rather than downwards and outwards, and it just simply rushed down the hill. Huge volume of material moving down the hill in a solid stream, probably reaching speeds of up to 40, maybe 50 miles an hour, in a narrow track, just heading straight downhill in a completely liquid form, just like an avalanche. And within a matter of seconds, it had crossed the Glamorgan Canal, filled it, 36-inch water main out of the ground, fractured it, hit the back of the school like an express train, and went straight through it from back to front. and it managed to get rid of enough water in that process to stabilise itself. And literally within minutes, it had gone solid. It was absolutely predictable, there's no question about it. The tragedy, obviously, is not predictable, but the event was absolutely predictable.
But it was a fairly slow process, because the scheme of the Coal Board was not only to deny liability, but if there was to be any liability, to ensure that it was placed on the inadequate shoulders of the very junior members of the pit staff. And it was a slow and tedious process of gradually moving it up and up and up until it rested very firmly on the shoulders of the members of the board.
The tribunal lasted almost 6 months. Finally, in the last week, Lord Robens arrived to give evidence.
We marched in. I don't want to be, I'm afraid of being liable. But he did, he walked in quite confident and marched down the aisle. And I got a feeling one of us whispered to the other, "Here we go, boys."
He thought he was allowed to sit down, but it was Judge Davis and the chairman. He said, "Lord Robens, you're no different to anybody else. You stand up and you take the oath." And I think that made him very, very small.
He had a terrible time on the witness stand, and his evidence was torn to strips. And he didn't have a leg to stand on. And in many ways I felt sorry for him, because I could imagine what it must have been like.
Lord Robens, are you glad you came to the tribunal?
Yes, I am, very much so.
Did you give an explanation of your interview when you said that no one could have known that the centre of the mountain was turning into slush because of a stream?
Well, I answered all the questions that were put to me, and I hope that the answers did convey such explanations as were required by the tribunal.
In the summary of the report, without mincing matters, it says the National Coal Board was to blame for the disaster. There was no qualification of the statement. It was an outright condemnation.
When you imagine what they'd been through, and to attend at this hearing and to behave so impeccably with such dignity and restraint. Yes, it was. They were wonderful. You remember John Collins?
Oh, yes.
John,
yeah.
He lost his wife, his 2 children, his home, everything he had. He was present when Lord Robens was cross-examined by Desmond Ackner. At the end of it, he came across to me and he said, "Well," he said, "that was like balm to my soul." Yes, and then he left very quietly.
Very bitter with the Coal Board. Very bitter. Knowing full well they was in the wrong and tried to wriggle out of it. They was in the wrong. And on top of that, after, we had to pay the money to remove the tip. Out of the fund that people donated. That was the bad part. Children, old age, collected that money. And it went to move a tip that the Coal Board put there, and the Coal Board should have paid for.
There were 6 other tips up there, towering over us. And what did they do? They took the money out of the fund to pay for the removal of the tips, which to me was shocking. No, it's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And that's always been in me. That's always wanted to come out.
Because it was such a large amount donated, they wanted 150,000 out of the tip money for the removal of the tip.
And I think that they owe us. Call it a debt of conscience if you like. But it's there. They owe the people in Aberfan a debt. You see, There's the memorial garden to be upkept. The cemetery, you want money for that. Where is it going to come from in later years when we are not here? We've got to look ahead. But they owe us a lot of money.
This is the memorial garden, which is built on the site of the school where the actual school was. And here, each area of green represents a classroom of the school. The main corridor here in the hall being where the hall of the school was. And this was the classroom where I was actually located, or I was seated somewhere around here. Yeah, at the desk. There was the hall where we were just vacated, having sung All Things Bright and Beautiful, and we came here. Out of the 34 that were in there, only 4 of us survived. So we had no friends. Our childhood was brought to an immediate halt. We couldn't play as normal children would play. In the process of growing up with play, that had all gone. We had to grow up very, very quickly. For a long time after the disaster, I couldn't come back to Aberfan, let alone go to school. We were frightened of the tip, the possibility of it coming down again. I didn't really settle back in school until about 4 or 5 years after the disaster.
I kept going, I did. And that's the new reason. But it took my wife a long time to get over it. Well, I still get bad days now, like, you know. But it's when it's birthdays or things like that, you know. Because in our house, we still count 6. There's 4 girls, but we still count 6. Yeah? But you got to, haven't you? Really. If we was going to move, I wasn't going to build this house. We was going to move away. But you can't run, can you? What's the point in running? So we stuck it, and I couldn't be no nearer to the cemetery than I am today. But looking back now, I think that was for the best. It's nice to see people now calling in this house that in the same position as I am, you know, which is good in a way.
They do that?
They do call in, yeah. When they come up the street up there, or they come up this way, and they call in or chat like this. Well, they helps one another then, because, you know, they get the quiet moments up in the cemetery. Well, then we don't go on to them or anything like that. Let them have the quiet time, like. But it's good that way. It helps one another, because you do need help, really. But the people of Dunblane will certainly need help. The ones that lost their only ones. But don't take it on themselves or lock themselves away, like some in Aberfan have done. Go out, go amongst their friends and neighbours, and they will help them in the long run. And they'll find it'll get a little bit easier in time, but it's soon yet for them. Very soon. It's coming up 30 years for years. But there's not a day goes by unless you think about it. It's in the back of your mind.
Well, that's my sister, but they're in Moy Road, and her friend. They both lost their lives. And my sister that died was 10. And I think the little girl with my sister was one of her best friends. I think Dad, you said he was working for there, weren't you?
Yeah.
One of the houses for there?
The third house for there.
Third house.
He was working there.
What was he doing now?
Me and my friend were doing the front of the house.
Ah.
A lady there.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Jones come running around that corner by there.
Yeah.
She said, quick lift that wall and come down up the school by there.
Right on the
come
corner.
up the school.
I was 8 years old at the time. I wasn't able to tell my father or my mother all my feeling that was bottled up in me. So when I was 14, during lessons, school lessons, I just felt compelled to write everything that I thought down onto paper. So I just started off with a normal family life and went from there straight through till the end. So I just wrote everything down, and I think that was the way I got everything out to my sister. I don't think people should forget anyway. Some people say yes, there's an argument there, but I don't think they should forget myself. You know.
You can put it out the back of your mind, you know, it do get easier as time goes on. But they say time is a healer, but it take a long time to heal.
Yeah.
A long time to heal.
What would they be like anyway? I want to talk about it sometimes, and people don't want to know about it, which is right. And therefore, for a while, I was drinking quite heavily, and that blots it out for a while. But it's there again in the morning, and I don't think that helps one iota. So I don't drink at all now. So that's it. That's my life. From a basically very insignificant person, really, no particular ambitions in life, just to teach in the middle of all this. It's just still incredible.
You know, depression and you know, it's a thing. It's hard to get over. It's hard to get over. And when you hear of disasters in other places, you know what these people are going through. Same as the people in Dunblane, right? I feel sorry for them, because when I seen it on television, to see their mothers and fathers running up the streets, want to know whether his son or daughter are alive or dead. It was, it brought everything back, and I feel sorry for them. And my advice to the people in Dunblane is do what we did. Get occupied in something, form committees, form action groups, and they'll find this will help. They'll never get over it, never. You've got to try to move on. Our children are grown up now, and we got grandchildren coming up. We'll support them same as they supported us.
As far as we're concerned now, we still got 2 boys, and we're only separated for a time. One day we're going to meet. The parting and the loneliness and being without him is terrible, but it's not forever.
We think of the 9 years we had with our little girl, and we're glad, we're pleased we've got that memory. Mind, there was a long time. There was years before we could think this way. Years went by before we could even look at a photograph. And we've got literally hundreds, which I'm pleased with. We look at them now. These really are what keep you going. I think logical thinking has got to go. Black and white thinking has got to go. And if you have a faith, any faith at all, keep it, hold it, keep on to it. And I'll tell you why I say this. Because my wife, Olive, she has faith. And when I say she's got it, I don't mean it's a surface thing. She doesn't tell everybody. She doesn't go out and broadcast it that she has a faith. She's got it. It's in her. 100%. And I know it. Nobody knows it better than I do. She was the one who kept my head above water, if you like, all the time. And I was sinking many times, I can assure you. Many, many times. She never, ever wavered. She'll tell me off for saying this, I expect. But it's true. And I hope it helps other people. Because as I say, the faith will keep them going. Because there's no there's no point in asking why. There's no point, as I've done. I do. It's a question, why?
We went everywhere together. Her name was Jacqueline Powell. We was always together, that's all I could say. We dressed the same, with the same umbrella, same clothes, same shoes. We was never apart. I came out of hospital. First thing I said to my mother was, I'm going over to tell Jacqueline what had happened to the school, because at the time I didn't know she died, till they had come out of hospital. Oh, I used to have nightmares. I wouldn't go upstairs with the light off, I wouldn't sleep with the light off. And the nightmares, they're dreaming. I used to dream about Jacqueline quite regular then. I was out in the street playing, and she kept on calling me out the street. And I went to the bedroom window. I was dreaming. She wasn't there real, like. And I even went to the front bedroom window to have a look out the front to see if she was there. And I woke up, I realised it was just a dream. Yes, I still think about Jacqueline. I go up to the cemetery on her birthday and on Christmas. Take flowers up to her.
Calvary.